We're in Parashat Vaeira, and we see that Hashem is starting all the plagues now in Mitzraim, and the plagues are called in Hebrew makot. Makot is like when you beat somebody up. Is to hit somebody, to smack somebody. This is a makah. Doesn't call it in English. It's called a plague. But we see that this week's parasha and the next week's parasha starting all the plagues, which brings a big wonder if this is the way that the Torah is educating us to deal with problems. I mean, one might say this is the attitude of the Torah, that somebody is not listening to me, so I have to now smack them and be violent here. So obviously that's not the case. The Torah is not promoting violence in any type of a way. And if this is the case, then why is the Torah using in such an approach? So last week we read that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, go and take the sons of Israel out of Mitzraim. And we saw the whole negotiation. Moshe Rabbeinu saying, they're not going to listen to me, Paro is not going to listen to me, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And God keeps telling him, no, don't worry, I'll make it work. So you would think that the whole thing should have taken 1 hour, Moshe coming in, talking to Paro, Paro says, here's the keys, leave. But we see that there's a whole argument going on, a whole year of backwards and forth, and the whole time of the plague was a whole year. So comes of course the question, why was this whole process needed? All this production and the plagues and animals flying from different places and blood and hail, and isn't it easy just to go like that and finish with it? Now, more what we want to understand is that the Torah comes to teach me something. So on the first glance it seems like the Torah is teaching me that the way to deal with the problem is with violence. That's how it seems. But obviously there's a much more hidden meaning for the plagues, which when somebody will come and ask, why 10? One is not enough? Or just come and make a miracle and that's it? Why do you have to do this whole show? Obviously there is a meaning for the 10 plagues. There's a reason why 10 and why not 1 and not 7, and there's a lot of commentaries that ask, why didn't they right from the beginning do the last plague of Makat Bechorot, of the death of the firstborn? Just do that right away and finish with it. So obviously it seems like the rest of the plagues are a waste of time. Some people can come and argue and say, just do right away the 10th plague. I mean, that seems like the one who really shook Paro, because he was the firstborn too. So just do right away the last plague and finish with it. Seemingly all the other plagues were a waste of time. But we want to know, what is the Torah trying to tell me specifically with the plagues, and why it had to come 10 plagues, and more than that, what is the meaning of each and every one of them? Now, the one plague that seems the most irrelevant or the most not effective was specifically the second plague, the frogs. All the rest, one can say, I can understand what's the meaning behind it. But the frog, what was so different with the frog, and why specifically that one? And there's a reason why they came in a certain order. There's nothing happened here by chance. It's not that they were doing a lottery and Moshe woke up in the morning and says, I wonder what we should do today. There's a certain order how everything came. But today we actually want to more talk about the specific second plague, which is the frogs, and what's so unique about the frog, and why dafka frog? How can it be from all the animals a frog was chosen? I mean, okay, so we have another plague of the arov, of the mixture of wild animals. So that's a lot of animals came from different types. Bears and tigers and lions and snakes, and it came like a jungle. But one plague, one animal gets one plague. And that's the frog, and today we want to talk a little bit about the frog. Why specifically the frog? Now, according to the commentaries, the frog, the plague of the frogs, was the one that affected Paro the most. That was the plague that most shook Paro, specifically that one. And not only that, this plague also has a difference between all the other plagues, that plague sustained. It stayed. All the other plagues, they stopped. The first one, the blood was for 1 week, that's it, back to normal. Same thing with the lice and the hail and the locusts. It lasted. Some of the plagues lasted 3 days, some of the plagues lasted a week. But the frogs stayed. They didn't leave, the frogs. You have to be very particular when you're reading the text. This is the plague that actually stayed. Not only that, there's a question, how do we know it stayed? Because it says very clearly in the Torah that the rak bayor tishaerna, that it will stay. They didn't walk around, but they didn't disappear completely. So the reason why specifically the frog stayed is because it's the plague that affected Paro the most, and he needed this reminder constantly. Constantly he needed to be reminded.
But most of them died?
Some of them died. The majority of them stayed, but they didn't. In the beginning the frog they went to everybody's beds and into the ovens. Then when the plague finished, they stayed, but they went back, mainly of them went back to the river. But mainly this plague stayed in order for Paro to constantly see it and to remind it to him. Now, it says in the Torah that only in the Yaor, rak bayaor tisharna, they will stay in the Yaor. But why specifically there? Because we know that that's where Paro used to go every morning to bathe. So the frogs, they stayed specifically in the Yaor. That every time that he went, he saw them.
But before that, they were not in the water.
They were in the water, but not all the quantities of them. Paro used to bathe in the morning in the river, in the Yaor, and that's where he used to go to the bathroom, because he told everybody that he's a god and that he doesn't need to use the bathroom. So he used to go to the Paro and bathe, into the Yaor and bathe there. So if you're ever going on a tour to Egypt, just remember not to go in there, because that's where Paro used it as a bathroom. But nevertheless, that's where Moshe and Aaron used to go. That's where they found him. Every time they wanted to see him, they used to go there in the morning, and they would see him. But when the frogs remained, they stayed in the Yaor, that every day that Paro will go to the Yaor, he would see the frogs and it would remind them. Now, interestingly, Rashi explains that this plague had two meanings. It had not only two meanings, that there was two reasons for this plague. Rashi says, le'yiram ve'levahalam, to bring fear into them and to scare them, which kind of seems the same thing, but Rashi uses two words, and that was the point of this specific plague. One of them is to bring fear into them, and the other one is to cause alarm, to make them scared. What is the difference? Now, Rashi explains that when they went through the order of the plagues, it was exactly like an army comes and attacks another country. And the army has tactics. Let's say the army wants to take over a city, then they would want to put the city under siege. And first of all, they will surround the city. And what's the first thing that they do when they want the city to surrender? They attack their water supplies. Because if there's no water supplies, then after 2-3 days, what do you drink? Even the Israeli army, that's what they do in wars. First of all, they attack the foundations of everything. If you notice, if you really follow the wars of Israel, in the first few hours, they shut down airports, power plants, water reservoirs. So now what are you going to do? After day or two, no electricity, no transportation, Right away, they go and bomb bridges, highways. That's what the IDF does. In the beginning of a war, 2-3 hours, the entire the foundation, the structure of a company is damaged. Now it's easier to put a lot of pressure to finish the war quickly, because no food, no water, no electricity. So Rashi explains the system of the plagues are the exact same system. First of all, you hit the water supplies. So they didn't have any water. Everything was blood. Everything that had water in it it wasn't only in the river. Even if a person had a pitcher of water, that turned into blood too. You had a cup of water, that turned to blood. Everything that had water in it turned into blood. So Rashi explains, first they went under the water supplies. Then the frogs. Now the frogs, they did a very strong noise. This is not the little frogs or that you see nowadays. Then it was definitely not Kermit. It was like these big frogs. They say they were like these huge frogs. And when they did their sounds, that was very, very strong. And imagine now millions of them doing the sound, and it's a lot of noise. And that was the second tactic of an army, to do a lot of noise. In the olden days, that's what armies used to do. They used to create a lot of noise. Even now, going even to our generation, sometimes what the IDF does, they fly jets very low, in very high speeds, Mach 3, Mach 4, and it shakes the entire city, the entire place. The noise, people go into fear just from the noise. When you hear the jets here, they're flying very high in the sky. Stand next to a jet when it's flying low, especially in a high speed, it's such a strong sound, then it brings fear, this sound. So up until today, armies have the same tactics. And Rashi actually goes and explains the tactic, how the first plague, blood, was to go to the water supply. Then the frogs was noise. Then slowly. That's what Rashi explains. We're not going to explain it now, but you can read it in the Chumash. But Rashi explains that first the frogs came to scare them, and then to leave fear in them. To live in fear, it's not fun to live in fear. Now, the way to explain what is the difference between the yir'ah and behala is scaring and putting fear in them. So there's a parable that there was once a little village, and the village had 2 teachers. It's not like today that you have schools and you send a kid to a school. It was a little village. There was a teacher there, and there was in this specific village 2 teachers. One teacher used to hit the children, and then that's how he got them to be scared. But the other teacher, he didn't hit the children. He used to have the whip hanging on the wall. Just know that there's a whip. He never hit them. He just hung it. So there's a difference between using something and you scare the person, or you put something out there for fear. So this is what the effect of the frog, Rashi says, was to scare them, but also to live fear. First of all, to hit them. The plague had to hit them. But then it stayed there to keep that fear going on. And the point was that they will constantly see the frog, and they will remain having this fear. Now comes a question, an interesting question, that it seems like in the world there are some animals that we can definitely get rid of, that we don't really need them. And one can ask Hashem, what's the purpose of this animal? You really had to create this animal? Some animals I understand, okay, maybe as pets, maybe as guide, or like a dog can be a guide for a blind person, a donkey to carry stuff, an ox to plow. I understand some of the animals, they have a purpose. Some animals one can ask, what is the purpose of this animal? Can you tell me what's the purpose of a fly or a mosquito or all these worms and stuff? Now these specific animals, they don't have a purpose, but they're not decomposing. The reason why we have all these flies and the mosquitoes and stuff is because when Adam HaRishon sinned, then Adam HaRishon got 10 curses, Chava got 10 curses, the snake got 10 curses, and the land got 9 curses. Totaling of 39 curses. That's why when we observe Shabbat, there are 39 melachot, 39 labors we're not allowed to do, to bring a rectification. So when the land was cursed, that's when all the flies and the bugs and the mosquitoes all came out from. So it's just a curse. They don't have any purpose in the world. But regardless, there are different animals that one can say, if this animal will be extinct, I wouldn't feel any difference. The world can be just as good without this specific animal. And there is a story in the Tanakh that David HaMelech was very close to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And one time he told Hashem, you created such a perfect world. I see the perfection in your creation. But there's 2 things I do not understand why you created. One of them is called Shigaon, craziness. What do we need this? And the other one is cobwebs. Why do I need cobwebs? What kind of a weird thing is that? That the spider comes into my home and makes cobweb, or whatever he goes. David HaMelech could not understand these 2 things. He says, everything I understand, the world is perfect. But I don't understand craziness, shigaon. Maybe I'm using the wrong word by craziness. But shigaon is when somebody's crazy. Or the cobwebs. Hashem has laughed and he told David HaMelech, listen, David, everything that I made is perfect. I made a perfect world. Everything has a reason, and everything in my eyes is perfect. And then there's a story that David HaMelech was unfortunately constantly prosecuted. Everybody wanted to kill him, and he was chased all the time. There's a story in the Tanakh that David HaMelech was chased by a certain king. His name was Achish, the king of Gath, and he was chased by him because this king knew that Shaul is looking for him and there's going to be a reward. So he wanted to get David HaMelech too. During that time, then the king of Gath, Achish, he caught David HaMelech. So David HaMelech started pretending like he's crazy. Started screaming and making all sorts of movements with the hand and drooling and doing all these shows like he's crazy. And then Achish was like, this is the guy the king is wants. He looks like a lunatic, and he left him alone, let him go. And the other story is that one time Shaul was running after David HaMelech, and David HaMelech went into a cave. And the second that he went into a cave was a miracle, and a spider came and made cobwebs all on the entrance of the cave. When the soldiers and Shaul came, they looked, and they're like, okay, nobody is in this cave because these cobwebs should take at least 2 years to form. It's too much cobwebs. And they left. And David HaMelech was saved. And that's when David HaMelech realized in both times he was questioning Hashem why he created craziness and cobwebs, and he saw one time the craziness helped him to be saved, and the cobwebs helped him from being caught. So, in other words, everything that Hashem created has a purpose. Everything has a meaning. Nothing is here by chance. There is a story by the Baal Shem Tov that questioned, the Baal Shem Tov was very big about Hashgacha Pratit, that everything has a reason. And that was a lot of his teachings was about Hashgacha Pratit. This is where we really start finding the term that is called Hashgacha Pratit, divine providence. And everything has a reason, everything happens for something. And the Baal Shem Tov had a student that didn't accept this theory. He's like, I can't believe that everything has a purpose. I understand some has, but everything, no. So the Baal Shem Tov told him, go outside and look at a leaf on a tree. choose a leaf and look at it and follow it till you see the Hashgacha Pratit. He says, okay, my Rebbe told me to do that, or he went and do it. So he's sitting and he chooses a leaf and he's looking at the leaf maybe for 2 hours. He's looking. And as he was about to run out of patience, a wind comes and takes the leaf, and the leaf starts flying in the air. That's already catching his attention, so he's starting to follow the leaf. Everywhere the wind is taking the leaf, this guy is following the leaf. Till that he sees that after an hour or two, the leaf is flying in the air and whoop, lands on a little worm. And that's when he understood, wow, this leaf was there to come and cover this worm, that the worm will be protected from the sun or the rain or whatever it is. That's where he understood, I understand what my teacher, my master, is telling me, that everything is done for a purpose. So, with that said, then obviously the frog has a purpose too. Then one can say, why specifically a frog? I mean, I would maybe think maybe a different animal will be more effective. Maybe a snake. It's more scary, it's dangerous, and a frog is just like slimy. I mean, it's not the nicest animal, but it's not so dangerous. Obviously the frog has some type of a meaning. And this is what we want to talk about specifically today, that specifically behind the frog there's a very strong message, a very powerful message that the Torah is trying to tell me. Now, first we have to understand the nature of the plagues. The plagues took about a year. And we know we have 10 plagues, and how would the 10 plagues fit in the year? So first of all, we know that the first 3 months nothing happened. Moshe Rabbeinu went into Mitzraim, that's what we read last week. The whole thing didn't work out. Moshe Rabbeinu got very upset and he leaves. And for 3 months he didn't come back. I mean, the calculation is it's 2 months, but if you count it till the end of the month, it's 3 months. Now, how do we know that it was exactly a year? Because when did they leave Mitzrayim? That is pretty obvious. They left in Pesach. That's the spring. Now, how do we know that it was exactly a year? Because what was the punishment that Paro did? We read that last week. He told them, go and get your own straw. Now, when is the straw comes out? At the time of the Asif, which is Iyar. It's the only time when the barley and the wheat comes out. So he told them, go now and you collect your own straw, your own barley and wheat. I mean, they used to take the stalks and make tevin from that to put in the mud to make bricks. So that's when he told them to go and get it. That's where we learn that it was exactly the time of Iyar, and that's concluding a whole year from Nisan. So obviously the whole thing was a year. Now, the way it worked is that last week, if you remember, we read that Moshe and Aaron come to Paro, and they tell him, let our people go. And Paro answers them, you have too much time on your hands. You're not busy enough. If you have time to think that you need to do sacrifices and you're coming to waste my time, you obviously have too much time on your hands. And he punishes them that they have to now get their own straw. But nevertheless, we see that the whole thing took about a year, 12 months. Now 12 months, how do we get the 12 months from? Besides that, we learn from that it took 12 months to purify the nefesh. They had to go through this process. We find it in many different places that had to be a process of 12 months to reach to some type of a rectification. The first time we saw it was at the time of the flood. The whole world has to be underwater for 12 months. The rains came down for 40 days, and the water that came from beneath was only 40 days. But the entire process of the flood till the first piece of land showed took 12 months. And we find in other places in the Torah that the process of purification of the nefesh, of the soul, required 12 months. So we see here another 12 months of the plagues. And we also know, based on the Midrash, that the soul of a wicked person is in Gehenom for 12 months. And of course it's 12 months in our time, not in the time above. But nevertheless, that we see from that there is something in the purification time of 12 months, when the soul needs to be purified, or to reach a rectification. And we tend to say Kaddish for a person who dies for 11 months, to signify that the person is not a Rasha, and not going to Gehenom, and 11 months was just a trial, and then the person came acquitted in the judgment, became tzodek, and therefore we say only 11 months Kaddish. But you see that the first year, that is called Evel, the mourning, you are restricted from doing a lot of things, not listening to music, not buying new things, all sorts of things like that are the laws of a person who's mourning. So again we see the number, the 12 months. The 12 months that it takes for the neshama to overcome the loss of somebody. So in the 12 months, we know that all the plagues happened. 3 months, Moshe Rabbeinu came. The result of last week, no result, rather a punishment. Moshe said, I give up, don't include me here, and he leaves. Then he comes back, and from the month of Av, he came back in the month of Av. From Av till Adar is 8 plagues. All the plagues. The first plague of the blood was in the beginning of Av, then every month was 1 plague. 8 plagues, till Adar. And the plagues lasted a week, and then 3 weeks of negotiating, going backwards and forth to Paro. Paro's heart is being hardened by Hashem, and then again, and backwards and forth. The 9th plague happened on the first day of Nisan, which is of course the plague of darkness. That happened on Aleph Nisan. And the last plague, Makat Bechorot, was on the 14th day of Nisan, because that's when they left. So there we have how it spread out, the 10 plagues on 9 months, and 3 months from the beginning, from when Moshe Rabbeinu first came till when it all started. Now, what's the purpose, so to say, that the plagues were so long? Just finish with it, get it done, chick-chack. Why you smear it over a year? So there has to be a reason for that. There's an interesting reason that we learned today in the morning with the men's class that has nothing to do with our topic, but just interesting to know, is that when the time that the world was created, there was a different world that preceded this world. And this world is called Olam HaTohu. In this world of Tohu, there were 7 kings that had to die before the world was created. When that happened, it had a concept that is called Shvirat HaKelim, the breaking of the vessels. This is a term of Kabbalah that we find in many different places, and what was the result is that these godly sparks fell down into the worlds, specifically to the world of Bria, Yetzirah and Asiyah, and they got captured in the Klippa. And the Klippa is a husk. Now the form, how the Klippa controlled it, is that the spark itself was diminished. So from the side of the spark itself, it didn't even feel that it has the power to fight. But from the outside, the Klippa covered the spark in such a way that nobody was able to see it, to make it invisible. So the Bnei Israel had to go down to Mitzraim to elevate these sparks, and specifically the 10 plagues were required to break the husk, to break the Klippa. If you now take an egg, there isn't the man or the woman that has the talent to be able to peel an egg and keep the shell in one piece. You can't peel an egg and not break it into a couple pieces. There's no such a thing. No man was ever able to do that. Maybe 5-6 pieces, maybe. Usually you'll break an egg. Once you break it, okay, you get a few big pieces, but then you get a lot of little ones. Same thing with an orange or any other fruit. You can't peel the orange in one shot. You always have a few pieces. this is explaining to us that even the klipa needs to be broken a couple times before you can take something out of it. So the klipa had to be 10 times struck by the plagues in order to break the klipa, so Bnei Israel can take the klipa out and leave from Mitzraim with it. But other than that, then we want to understand physically. I mean, now what we talked about was a little bit more the Kabbalistic approach is here. But physically, why did it have to go through the process of a year? So comes, of course, a question in the Torah, because the Torah is very, very precise. And most people, they zoom through the parasha and they don't pay attention to the little details. If you look at the little details, you'll see that it says in the Torah to Aaron to wave his hands over the water. And it was Aaron, by the way, that brought the plague, not Moshe Rabbeinu. And the order was to wave his hands over the water and to bring out the frogs. But you know what Aaron did? He only brought one frog out. Only one frog came. Maybe the hocus pocus didn't work. Maybe he said the wrong abracadabra. But the order was that he has to bring a lot of frogs out. And he goes and only one frog comes out. Later on, how this frog became many frogs. So there's two opinions. One opinion is said by Rabbi Akiva, and the other opinion is by Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. These are the two opinions, and we actually read about them very soon as Pesach. We're going to read about them in the Haggadah. But each one has an opinion how from one frog it became many, many frogs. The first opinion is that the first frog came out and it just had a lot of babies. And the word in Hebrew is called leashrit, because frogs don't have babies. They don't have rather the eggs. They I think it's called spawn. How? Tadpoles? No, these are the little ones. But how is the action called? No, it's called, I think, spawn. The tadpoles is the little ones that come out. Yes. But the action, if I'm not mistaken, is called spawn, right? That it shoots out a lot of them, like a fish. Fish doesn't lay, well, some fish do. But same like with snakes. Some snakes, they lay eggs. Some snakes, they go out alive. So Rabbi Akiva says, no, the frog came out and it started to have a lot of babies. The other opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he says no. The frog went out and it made the sound. In Hebrew it's called lekarkel. In English I think it's called cluck, chuck, cluck, something, kluk, croak. So he did a quack, and but I'm saying, but he did a whatever the noise is, and all the frogs came out of the water. So the first one was Kermit, and he made quack, and then everybody came out. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that he says no, Aaron only took one out, and he went like, and all the chevre came out, and these are the two opinions. Rashi has a different opinion, and he said that they hid it, and you know what happens if you take a stick now, and you hit water, the water splashes everywhere. So Rashi says they hit the first one and it splashed thousands of more. So they hit them and they splashed, and they were trying to kill them, and every time that they hit them, then they multiplied in hundreds and thousands. Exactly like you will hit now, take a stick and hit on the water, and you'll splash. That's exactly what happened. That's the opinion of Rashi. Now, the question here is, Aaron didn't do what he was told. Hashem told him, you raise your hands on the water and bring all the frogs out. He only brought one frog out. So, again, we're coming back to the same question. So what's this deal with this frog? Well, it started with one frog, obviously. Not many frogs. But again, what is the deal with the frog, and why specifically a frog? And more than that, why is that should affect Paro? A frog? Who cares? The Egyptians used to eat the frogs. They just got free food. So what's the, okay, I understand the blood in the water. You can't drink the water. The lice, they were scratching, and the locusts ate all their food, and the hail destroyed everything, and the frog, who cares? So I have a few frogs here. Big deal. You know, people live, even now in our days around the world, they have rodents, mice, rats, cockroaches. Oh, because I have a frog. Big deal. What is that? Why is that supposed to be scaring Paro? And Bemet, they used to eat frogs. So it's for them, it's like getting free fruit. It's like getting fruit stamps. Instead of going to the supermarket and buying food, the frogs came straight to their ovens. So what's the big deal? That doesn't seem like such a punishment. And that's going to affect Paro? Okay, so they kick the frogs out and finish with it. The thing is, the plagues, they weren't there only to get Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim. They had many different reasons. Yes, the point was to get Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, out of Mitzrayim. But it wasn't only for that. There were other reasons. That's why I told you before that the klippah had to be broken. It wouldn't work in one shot, because other than that will be one plague and get it over with. Rather, the point of the plagues was a little bit more sophisticated. Not to get the Jews, they weren't called Jews then, but the sons of Israel, not to get them out of Mitzrayim, rather to get Mitzrayim out of them. And that's what we talked about yesterday. You weren't here on Shabbat, but that's what we talked about in the morning. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim, the Bnei Israel, they looked at him and they said, first of all, you're wasting your time. Second of all, maybe you can get us out of Mitzrayim, but you can't get Mitzrayim out of us. This is already stuck in our nature. Mitzrayim is in us. So physically you can get us out, but we can't get rid of the mentality. We have already a mentality of a slave. We have a mentality of being in Mitzrayim. You can't get that out of us. And they said, don't even bother. Let's just stay here. Moshe, of course, had a different opinion. He says, no, I can get Mitzrayim out of you. You know, we spoke about it in length yesterday, which unfortunately we couldn't record. But I was talking about that nothing really changed for the last 3,400 years. The only thing that is different between us and Bnei Israel that were in Mitzrayim, that we have cell phones. That's it. We have iPhones. And they can take selfies. Imagine if they had iPhones at the time, they would all take selfies, you know, with the plagues and the water opening. It's the only difference between us and them. And we have Nike and Gap, and they wear sandals. That's it. But the idea is the exact same thing. They were stuck in slavery. Forget about the hard work that was interpreted as slavery. Also in our generation was stuck in slavery. I don't know anybody who was just going and they have a tree of money outside. You also have to work hard in this world. And even if it's not for money, everything in this world is hard work. You have a relationship, working on your relationship is hard work. You want to educate your kids? That's hard work. 25 to 35 years of your life, you're working hard to educate your kids. And they drive you nuts. And forget about damages and costs, and everything in this world is hard work. So they were also working hard. And it says that they didn't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu mikotze ruach. Kotze ruach is anxiety. Everybody in our generation, at some point or another, they have anxiety about things. And kotze ruach is a short breath, so to say, that being very impatient. So we're also very impatient. Here, if you stand in line for the coffee, and you're standing in line in Starbucks for more than a minute and a half, you get impatient. Or you're standing in the bakery and the person in the counter doesn't deal with you within 32 seconds. You start making all these noises. So we're also very impatient, and it drives us nuts all day long. So everything that they went through, we go through too. So, you know, it says that they didn't listen to Moshe from Kotzer Ruach and Avodah Kasha. They were very impatient, hard work, and they used to work hard, b'chomer v'lvinim. Chomer is materialism, is material. So we're the same thing. I'm slave to my materialism. It comes out the new iPhone, I have to get it. My car is already 2-3 years old, I have to get a new one. We're without even noticing, we're slaves to materialism. On Friday, 1 hour, we didn't have electricity. Everybody was here hyperventilating. 1 hour, we didn't have electricity. Everybody, I was hearing the breaths. What's wrong? So 1 hour, you don't have electricity. Big deal. How are we going to eat? How are we going to sleep? How are we going to pray? How are we going to this? Relax. Hashem wants you to pause for an hour. So we're so used to materialism that a little bit of a blackout, everybody was like already losing their breath. And when it says michomer velevenim, levenim is bricks. They were carrying bricks. We're also carrying bricks. Our life is full of burdens. And a person that says my life has no burdens, then they're living in denial. We all struggle with burdens. Whether it's to get money, whether it's to pay my rent, whether it's to educate my kids, or we're all carrying a lot of burdens on us. You can call it a burden, you can call it a challenge, however you want to call it. But nothing really changed from 3,400 years ago to now. Maybe the scenario changed a little bit. So the same way they had the mentality of a slave, we're stuck in the same mentality, by the way. We're stuck in the mentality of what society tells us to do. So, I follow what the society tells me. And I'm stuck in the same mentality. Now, in Egypt, how could it be that the slaves never ran away? They didn't have fences. They didn't have surveillance systems and an army. The slaves didn't run away because they were so stuck in that mentality that they stayed there. So the point of the plagues was not only to get Bnei Israel out of Mitzrayim, rather to get Mitzrayim out of them. Now in the 10 plagues is so to say, the answer or the solution to all of the questions that we have in our life. Now, really, the whole point of Mitzrayim was the beginning of the giving of the Torah. That was Mitzrayim. We went down to Mitzrayim for 210 years only to receive the Torah. And Hashem wanted to show the entire world who He is and what He is. Now, what does Paro tells Hashem? What does Paro tells Moshe? Why should I even listen to Hashem? I don't even know who He is. Not only that, He threw Moshe out of the room right away by telling him, why should I listen to Hashem? First of all, I don't even know who He is. But why should I listen to him? Now this is the simple explanation that Paro says, I don't know Hashem. But really what he was telling him, in other words, Paro was telling Moshe, I don't believe that the master of the universe has time to deal with me. He's the master of the universe. He created so many worlds, and He has time to deal with me. So what if here in this world I'm a big Paro, a big king? But compared to the master of the universe, I'm this big, I'm nothing. I don't believe that He has time to deal with me. You're inventing it. It's your excuse. You coming in the name of God, but I don't believe that God has the time or day to think about me. Meaning to say that we have the exact same problem. We tend to say, does Hashem really care about me? Hashem really listens to my prayers? Hashem really hears what I have to? Hashem really cares? No, can't be. Why should I bother? I shared that so many times that when I went on my first date with my wife and I told her my personal story, she told me later that there was a specific part in my story that hit the nail on the head. And she told me I was, my wife didn't grow up observant. When she was in college, she met a rabbi who started, inviting her to a Shabbat meal, to a Purim party, and slowly got her a little bit excited about Judaism. But it took her about 10 years bouncing backwards and forth with this whole religious things. And she told me, I believed in God. I believed the Torah is real. I believed in the mitzvot. But I had one question that I couldn't believe. And she was like, how can it be that there are 7 billion people in the world and God knows me? There's no chance that He knows me. I understand He knows the famous ones. But me? So if He doesn't know me, so why should I bother? If He doesn't know me, because there's no chance that He can know so many people, then why should I bother? Why should I pray? What, He listens to me? Why should I be dressed modest? What, He's looking at me? Why should I say Shakol Niya Bidvaro when I put something in my mouth? That does he really care? The master of the universe creates billions of worlds, trillions of souls and angels, and he cares if I say Shakol Niya Bidvaro before I put something in my mouth? No. So that was the approach that my wife had before she became observant. And you know, that's the approach of most of us. When I'm outside in public, then I will be very proper next to everybody. I'll wear my long dress, and well, I don't wear dresses, but I'm talking to you. And I'll be very, very religious next to everybody, so nobody will come and say anything. But am I that observant also at home? In many cases, not. In many cases, I'm like, oh, nobody's here, so I do whatever I want because nobody sees. That's when I have this doubt in my mind. Hashem doesn't really look at me. Unfortunately, many people, they behave, that's what I was saying, this mentality, next to everybody, I'll behave very religious. But I don't do that when I'm in closed doors because I don't really feel that Hashem is really paying attention to me. Now, some people, on the other hand, they don't do a lot of things that the Torah tells them to do because they don't really feel that Hashem really cares. And how many times somebody has a challenge and you tell them, pray. No, really, pray. Pray. Hashem really listens? Yeah. There's so many other people to listen. Why would he listen to me? Unfortunately, we have a place deep down in our neshama that we're stuck in, that we'll call it for now a Mitzraim, a state of limitation, that I do not believe that the master of the universe cares about me. And I don't put importance to things, because if I would understand that Hashem is constantly around me, and he cares about every little thing that I do, then I would do things completely different. And that was the problem of Paro. Paro says, I cannot believe that the master of the universe cares about what I do. Go back to your work. Now, we mentioned about the frog. So there are three types of animals in the world. One animal that has a lot of, it brings something good into the world. There's a use to that animal. Like I said before, a horse you would ride on, a donkey will carry load, the ox will plow the land, a dog can be a guide dog, a guard dog. Many animals, they have a purpose. And they're doing it very good. Sometimes it can be like a little pet just to bring some happiness to a human being. So this is one group. Then there's another group of animals that it seems like they have zero importance in this world. And you say, the world will sustain and survive very good without these animals. But then there's a type of animal that it doesn't do good and doesn't do bad. I mean, the second type, I should add that it's the type of animals that are bad animals. I mean, one can say, really, do we need like all these bad animals in this world, like a scorpion? What do we need a scorpion in the world? Just do bad. What does he do good? Okay, one can maybe argue, okay, snakes, okay, they're keeping the ecology, they're eating the mice, and they're keeping some type of balance in nature. But some animals, you say, it seems to me like completely bad. We can definitely be without them. Scorpions, mosquitoes. Who needs a mosquito? What good does the mosquito do? Doesn't do anything. Such a weird animal. It doesn't even get rid of its own dirt. It's an animal that doesn't go to the bathroom. I mean, animals don't go to the bathroom, but it doesn't even have excrement. This type of animal. What kind of an animal is that? And we can definitely get rid of these animals. But then, of course, there's animals that they don't go good and they don't do bad. They're just animals, and you go and see them in the safari, and you marvel their beauty, and that's it. Hashem wanted to make a point to show Paro that even the lowest of the lowest is bowing down to Hashem and does what Hashem says. And that's specifically why was the whole idea of the plagues, is to show even Paro that the creation is nullified to the Kadosh Baruch Hu. But more than that, the specific plague of the frog is to teach us that there's nothing in this world that has no meaning. I mean, all the rest of the plagues you can understand. Okay, the blood, no source of water. the lice were scratching all day long. You can go nuts from the scratching all day long. Okay, leave me alone. Go out, just stop the scratching. And then the locusts came and ate everything, so they didn't have food. And every plague, you can say, I can understand something behind it. But the frogs, I don't understand. They didn't do anything, so they went quack quack a little bit. Big deal. They didn't even scare anybody. That's only to show Paro that he should understand that everything in the world has a purpose. And only for us to take from that, I mean, everything the Torah says, it's for us to learn something from that. Is for me to understand that if Paro understood that even something as simple as a frog is controlling him and has a purpose, and so much more, so I need to understand that every little thing in this world has a meaning. Every little thing in this world has importance. More than that, everything that I do has importance. Because we tend to feel that I'm not important. I'm not important in the eyes of my friends, I'm not important in the eyes of my community, or my wife, or my kids, or it's very easy to fall into this place that, what am I contributing to the world? What do I do here? We sometimes run into this situation that I'm like, is my actions really make a difference? Now that I put tefillin on, the universe cares if I put tefillin on. If I say a blessing, I don't lie, I put a mezuzah on the door, does it make any difference? Does it affect anyone? And the answer is yes, that everything that we do is affecting people, affecting myself and affecting the universe. Nothing in the world was created for no reason. So even my little actions, a lot of people now, they're feeling that, does my little action makes any difference to bring the redemption faster? I constantly tell people, everybody has to participate. And the answer that I get is, really my action is going to bring Mashiach? My little action? Yeah, don't lie today, Mashiach might come because of that. Don't say Lashon Hara. Maybe your effort of not saying Lashon Hara today will convince the Kadosh Baruch Hu to bring Mashiach. We have to understand that every little thing that we do has importance and a meaning to that. And when I understand how important I am, that's the taking me out, not taking me out of Mitzraim, it's taking the Mitzraim out of me. So I can actually wake up in the morning and say, wow, the world needs me. And without me, the world is missing. And I know some will interpret it by saying, okay, well, that maybe develop some ego. Oh, the world is depending on me. That's not the point. The point to understand is that how valuable is every little act that I do. Sometimes you oversee things and you think, what's so important? Especially when it comes to affect another individual. You know how many times, Baruch Hashem, I have a very big merit that in the last 14 years, I travel around the world and I give a lot of lectures and I meet a lot of people and I been everywhere and in front of any audience, schools, synagogues, anywhere. And I deal with all types of people, observant, not observant, kids, youth. And sometimes I go to a lecture and I finish the lecture and everybody just gets up and leave. And it's very easy to get discouraged, to go out of your house for 3 weeks, don't sleep well, don't eat well, not easy. And sometimes I do get does this make any difference? One time I went to a lecture and somebody told me, don't you get discouraged that when you come and stand in front of a crowd for 2-3 hours and everybody just says thank you then and they leave? And I'm like, why? What would you expect them to do? I don't know, maybe, change their life and maybe put a tzitzit on, or I don't know what. And I said, first of all, do you think that somebody will do something right away? When I come to the lecture, I give a little injection and then it will start developing. And it might take a week or 2 weeks or a month, but I already put my injection inside and then they have to develop it. I'm not expecting people to come out of a lecture and right away jump into the mikveh. That's not how it works. But he told me, don't you get discouraged? I said, no, because I know it's a process. But nevertheless, sometimes I do feel, wait a minute, is my action even worth anything? Put so much out there, so much energy into the world, so much time to answer people's questions and give people attention, and is it even worth anything? Because most of the people don't show appreciation, or I don't see a change or something. I don't see, because I might see a change in somebody in front of me. But behind the little screen, there's tens of thousands of people. I don't know who they are. And once in a blue moon, then Hashem will be kind and He will send me a person that says, oh, I saw you on this lecture, or I saw that video and you changed my life. Or I did this, or I did that. We help a person, we do a lot. We go out of our way to help another individual. And we don't even get a thank you. Forget about thank you. I don't see, I'm like, was all my effort worth? I mean, look what, I went totally out of my way for this individual, and the result is I don't get nothing. The person doesn't even acknowledge what I did to them. And it makes me discouraged, and then I don't want to help the other person. But the point is that we have to understand that every little action that we do is so powerful, we don't even know how far it goes. I can go now and help another person, and the reaction that I'll get will be negative, and it will cause me not to want to help another person, or feeling that, what is my action worth? The point specifically of this plague is to teach us. It wanted to teach Paro that everything is nullified to the Kadosh Baruch Hu, including you, Paro. But I want to take a teaching from that. When I read the Torah, it's not to read a historical event. It's to take something, teachings that I can apply to my life. I need to understand every day that every action that I do has a lot of meaning. If you're looking at the negative side, then my actions that are negative, they also have a lot of weight. And my actions that are positive, so much more so. How many times somebody asks for my help, or somebody needs me to do something, and in my mind I'm like, it's going to really make a difference. Now I'm going to do something that makes a difference. Nah. And I tend to get a lot of times lazy to do certain things. It's late at night, nobody's around me. I'm like, okay, I don't really need to pray right now when Hashem really listens to me. Hashem knows what's in my heart. So the point is that Hashem says everything in this world has a meaning. Don't for 1 second minimize your actions by saying they're irrelevant, or they're not important, or that my words are not powerful. One time, I told you so many times that when I used to learn in yeshiva for many years, and my wife used to rent real estate. We lived in New York. And there were times that I had to go and work instead of her, because either she just had a baby or whatever. So I didn't like that job, but I was like, okay, if I'm already walking in the streets of Manhattan, then for me this is just targets. I had a long coat, CDs everywhere, all these little pamphlets and brochures and candles, and I was like, hey, people will come to see an apartment. I didn't ask them what's their budget, or what's their credit. Are you Jewish? You want to put tefillin on? I was like a crazy person. And one time I walked in the street and I saw an individual, and he had a very Jewish look, and it was the morning of a festival. I just turned around and I said, Good Yom Tov. He told me, it's today? And I was like, yes. He's like, I was sure it's in 2 days from now. Oh, thank you so much for telling me. And I was like, look at that. Sometimes you just say something. He would probably think that it's not the festival today, and he would do it the next day. All I had to say is, Yom Tov. So sometimes even one word, you don't know what a difference it makes. And it can be a negative word that can, chas v'shalom, do the complete opposite. Sometimes it only takes in the morning to say to a person, good morning, how are you? Not too long ago there was an individual, I don't even know the individual. I just asked the person, how are you? Oh, I can't believe that you're asking. Nobody's asking me ever, how am I? So the point to take from that is that every action that I do is huge. And every word that comes out of my mouth is huge. And I need to monitor it, because if it's negative, it will have a very negative effect. But if it's positive, how much more of an effect it will have on the world, that I understand that nothing is for vain, nothing is for no reason. Every little action here is huge. That even something as small as a frog is nullified to the Kadosh Baruch Hu and has a meaning in the universe, to come and to teach me that every step of my life, every word that comes out of my mouth, every thought is huge in the eyes of Hashem. And don't ever for 1 second even think that Hashem is ignoring your prayer, or not listening to your prayer, or not looking and noticing what you're doing. As a parent, I can tell you that I constantly give a special attention to my kids because I want them to know that I acknowledge what they do. Because a lot of times they come and tell me, you didn't say anything. I did so and so, and I tell them, I know. How do you know? You didn't say anything. But I see. Not always I tell you that I see, but the reality is that, here I'll do it for you.
Sorry. It's still recording now.
I don't know. I don't want to press something. It looks like it stopped recording. But Bemet, to conclude, is that I really have to understand that I am important in the eyes of Hashem. And everything that I do is huge. And when I'm sad, Hashem is sad. When I'm happy, Hashem is happy. And when I say a blessing, then Hashem is enjoying the blessing. When I do a mitzvah, Hashem is enjoying that. And when I'm going through a struggle, then Hashem also feels the pain. And this is the idea of taking the Mitzraim out of me, taking the state of limitation out of me, to understand that I am very important in this world. It shouldn't develop an ego in me. It just needs to bring more emphasis and importance to what I do. So many women, they wake up in the morning and they're like, okay, another day to make sandwiches and to make the laundry and to... Yeah, but you can make a difference in these little kids' lives. And so many people, they go to the same job every day. I see on their faces, they look like... And they don't understand that because in their mind, what am I contributing to society? What am I contributing to the universe? Hashem really now sees me as an asset here. And they look at other people, oh, they're so successful, this guy's doing this guy's doing that. The parasha comes to teach me that it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, Hashem looks at you as an individual, that He created you for a purpose. And everything that you do has a purpose. Even if in your eyes it looks like not. You just have to figure out, what am I doing so I can continue doing it the best way possible, that in the eyes of Hashem, my action are valuable. So the parasha comes to teach me such an important message that I need to have this positive ego, so to say, that, wait a minute, when I'm doing something now, it's a very powerful thing. It's not for nothing. Every blessing I say, every thought, every action that I do, I have to understand how powerful it is. Needless to say that we're constantly working towards bringing the redemption, and a lot of people say, what will my action do to bring the redemption? Well, your action is going to do a lot. You know, when you have a big scale, sometimes you only need this one little weight and it tilts the scale a lot. So we have to understand that our actions are huge and crucial to bring the redemption. A lot of people tell me, oh, no, let the big rabbis deal with it. Let the real observant people, they should deal with it. No, everybody has a piece in bringing the redemption. My entire attitude all day long is my action can now bring the redemption faster or not, or push it. And as long as I'm different or special, we're all the same. The mind frame should be like, right now, if I will pray now a prayer or do a certain mitzvah, that will be maybe the thing, the way that tilts the scale to a kaf zchut. You know, today is the Hilulah, the Yahrzeit of the Rambam, who said by himself, one mitzvah can tilt the entire world into kaf zchut. So that's what it requires for me to understand that, you know, sometimes we're lazy. And like, I don't feel like doing this right now. And like I told you before, next to people it's very easy to be very religious. At home, you go out of the bathroom, I don't feel like washing my hands now. It's not so important. No, wash your hands, say the blessing. You know, it doesn't matter if nobody's next to you. Maybe that blessing is what's going to tilt completely the entire situation, and your entire day will be completely different. From one little thing, from one little act that in your mind you're saying, that really makes a difference. You know, in the morning I have this meshugas, that when I see the men in the morning in the mikveh, everybody gets dressed. I see the ones who are putting the shoes the wrong way. It drives me nuts. Because the halacha is you put your right shoe on, then you put your left shoe on, then you tie the left shoe on, then you tie the right shoe on. That's the order how you should do it. And there's a reason for that. It's not for nothing that the Shulchan Aruch told you to do that. And when people... Oh, that's a long, long reason. But the point is that it drives me nuts when I see people don't do it. I tell them, switch the leg. No, take the right foot. And they're like looking at me like, what? Just leave me alone now. And I know that sometimes in people's minds they're like, now I'm going to waste my time with this shoe. Just leave it alone. So you have to understand that, yeah, waste your time with the shoe. Don't let this just pass. Zad Hashem, if we put our minds to every little thing that we do and the importance of it, we'll realize how important everything that we do. I can guarantee to you that our life will be completely different. And needless to say that we'll hasten the coming of Mashiach with all our good actions, and B'ezrat Hashem we should see it very soon with our own eyes.